In the property management screen, the next thing we're going to discuss is the tenant management. Now, tenant management is all created over whatever you have an issue with. Either somebody owes you something, or their lease is expiring, or the rental is expiring, or some other issue that's related to an inspection or collecting income from a tenant. So you have a owner and property and a tenant. Those are the key things that are in the system at this point. So let's discuss that next. If I wanted to look for just any tenant, I could go to the tenant list and click on that, and it would give me a list I could search on. Or if I'm actually looking in this particular portal record where I could scroll and say there are many records in there, what I can do is just scroll through, and they're in alphabetical order, first numeric, then alpha. So whatever the dwelling is that they're in would be listed here in yellow, and they would be in alphabetical order. So I could scroll down. And if I'm looking for a specific person, I would want probably the current tenant, not the one that's already left the location. And now what I would want to do is I'd want to pick that person. Well, how do I pick them? I just go over and hit the tenant. In this case, if I wanted to see Ben Birmingham, I would click tenant, and then I'd be right in that record. The first thing you'll notice when you open this record is there is a picture of the tenant family or the person that's in the view, and that helps you to identify a person when they walk through the door if you're going to be in, or you're going to a particular dwelling or unit and you want to be able to recognize them on site. They may be standing in the street, and that way you at least know the person that you're talking to. Well, what happens if there's more than one person in the household? Well, there's a thing called the tenant data portal. In the tenant data portal, in this case I've got just an image to put in there so that I can have something that's showing. But basically what could be in here, depending on the country you're in or the need, anything like a contract or an image of a person, or say for example receipts of certain things that they were paying for, and that you were going to reimburse them, or maybe it's something, a picture that has to do with something that's going on as a business transaction that related to the tenant. You could all put that in there, and there's many as you have to put in there, you can. And it shows here as you tap to add an image, you would add the image, and then what you would do is click this to put the date in, and then just type a short description of what this is used for. Now, in foreign countries, they have passports that they have to have, or you may in the United States, if you're here, would put in a driver's license image, so you would have something that identifies the driver or the person that is actually the person that's occupying your lease or your rental. Now, if it's like a vacation rental and you have a lot of people moving through, there's probably more than one piece of identification that you want, a picture ID and maybe something else that shows who the person is. You don't want somebody coming into your unit and destroying it and leaving after a party and having not any ID or information in there, especially if there's multiple people that are going to be in the dwelling for a short term. Okay, going back to the screen, click off it, you get to be able to see everything. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to enter the tenant's name. The property they're going to occupy is a drop down, so you can pick it from your list of properties that are in the database. If you type the first 2 or 3 characters of the actual unit name or address, what it'll do is it'll knock out everything else and just show you things like if they were all 300 West and there were 6 of them in there, then you would see all 6 and you could pick the one like apartment 1 through 6. Or if you're looking at this towers that has hundreds of units, you could pick it very quickly, because what it's going to do if you copy everything the same, these initial property IDs up here, the 3410, should be in order as you go down the list. Okay, next is the actual unit. In this case, the unit they're going to stay in is 3410, and that's either a lease or a rental. The date that they're going to actually occupy it, the term of the lease, and you can put it in there any way you want. You could put 1 year and 2 days or whatever it is that you need to put in there. That's what would be the termination date as far as the term is concerned. Then the lease would expire on the date that you say. After this date, the term over here would be this date. Then the tenant prior address. Now, why would we start taking that down? Well, you got to keep a record for your own purposes for tracking down this person if they don't pay and they walk out on you and leave you in a lease and they damage your dwelling. So you need to have information. Tenant address, last known, tenant prior city, tenant prior town or country if needed, state or country or province, the tenant zip or postal, the country they came from. If you have multiple countries and you're in a different country, you'd want to have that in there. The number of tenants that are actually going to be in the dwelling, husband, wife, 4 children, whatever, you would have that. The tenant phone and the tenant phone 2, email 1 and 2, maybe the wife and the husband if that's the case. You need that basic information. The next thing is notes. You would take some notes if they're pertinent to the person. For example, if you're going to do a credit check, and basically almost everybody that's doing property in the United States, for example, or Canada, do a credit check. They go to a credit company, they take the person's social security number and driver's license number, and then they go and they actually check the credit. Now you have to get permission from the person that's going to be occupying to use their credit in a credit check. Be very aware of that. It's a federal law. You cannot check their credit unless you have their permission. So you're going to probably want to have something that they have to sign that says that you have permission. You want a signature on something that says that you have that before you take it. The tenant UDFs. Now this is something kind of new for a lot of people. Basically what UDFs are, there are any fields that are not included in this area up here, but you need a field on the fly. For example, has a pet, that would be the title. It would be pet, dog, then the dog's name, and or maybe dogs. You could have a number of them. Every time you create a title, it's going to add another record. You can have an infinite number of those. You may have maybe somebody who has an illness and they are disabled. So you want to put something in there about disabled so you know that when you're giving them a location to live in, that it's got to be accessible by a disabled person. And if you're going to put them on a floor where there's a unit that you have that is for disabled people, then that's the one you want to put in there as far as what they should be going to look for. So that kind of information in here would be also disabled accessible as far as this particular thing is concerned, or anything that's along that line. Maybe the person wants a fireplace and they need it because they're cold all the time. Well, you can put those in there that this unit has a fireplace in both the living room and in the bedroom. That's an example of things that would be things that would not normally be in this area but would be here. So, or the person, these are kind of things that the person wants, and they would be reused only if you put them back into the next tenant's record. Okay. There's a lot of people that have wishes or needs, and the best way to satisfy those is to keep a record of them and then just show them units that have those kind of things. Now, obviously, as I showed before, you can jump between records by clicking the different record and seeing the different pictures and stuff that are in different records. And now what we're looking at now here is this is typically where you take all of your transactions that are cash transactions or credit card or whatever with this particular person or persons. So what you would do is you would go ahead, and the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to pick their name from the list up here and just drop it in as far as who's actually paying for this particular thing, if it's rent or whatever it is. The next thing would be a drop down for the whatever it is, cleaning, deposit, rental, or whatever. And as I stated before, there is a build item list that you can add to this thing. So if you're using it on an iPad, or and even in some cases on the server, what browser you're using, it may be a drop down list instead of a scroller. Okay, date, billing date. Now the question is always this: if you start them out on a certain date of occupy, are they paying 30 days, 45 days, every 2 months, whatever? You have to make sure that the next date that you're going to cycle in for the billing due date is going to be related to how you're going to take your rental in or your lease. They may pay 2 weeks ahead, or they may pay a month ahead or something like that. Well, then it'd be the next due or bill was due. If they took a deposit like this, and then next time it's going to be an actual rental, then you would go ahead and put that in there as far as the next one at the period of time that it's supposed to be due. Like the deposit was due on the 8th, or billed on the 8th and actually paid and doable on the 9th. And then the actual receipt was on the 9th, and the amount was shown in here as $5,000, and the billing amount paid was $49.99.98. This has got to be quite a dwelling to charge that much for it, but hey, you know, it is what it is. You never know what the cost of things are going to be in these days. If you see something out here as a balance, that's also going to be indicated that they have an unpaid balance, and it'll turn orange. If they're paid full, this will just be blank and zeros in there. And this is a way to flag it, so when you're looking through payments, you immediately know that there's a delinquent or a late payment that's going on here. So you want to make sure that, for example, if it's due on say the 8th billing due date and they didn't pay it, and you're looking at it and here it's the 10th, well, they're 2 days behind. This will be red or light red or orange or whatever you call that color. If you want to go to the portal record, which is the individual record, just pop over there and you can see that you can actually delete a individual record for cause. Either you entered it incorrectly or there was an error when it was entered and it wasn't entered properly. Let's go back to the tenant screen. Down at the bottom, you're going to see all the billed amounts, all of the paid sums, and then the balance that's due right now, and there's a balance of $24.02. So this person is not up to date on their payments, especially when you consider that this is on the 9th and this could be whatever date is after that. So you want to be able to chase these. Now, one of the nice things about doing this is when you go look at the report. The report is designed so that all the information you just saw over there is brought over here, and what it's doing, it's flagging anything that is unpaid right on the report. And so if you're looking at the report and say you want to take a copy of this and do a PDF file and send it to the particular tenant, you can actually do a find in the tenant record, in the portal record, and it'll only show the records that you want to have shown in here. For example, I don't need this guy's stuff when I'm trying to send it to this guy. So what I would do is I would do a find, and I can actually do it in here. I can say start the find, and I can do, say, Alexander Goodman, and I could say go do the find, perform the find, and then I have only Alexander Goodman stuff in here. So this is how you would use the report. It's individual billings and then the summary of whatever that data is for the balance that's due. So you can now send this either through an email by a PDF. If you're on the iPad, it will create in FMGO, it'll create a PDF, or you can actually just attach this directly to the email. So that it goes in as a pictorial in the actual email, depending on the browser that you're using. Okay, so let's go back to the tenant screen again. And normally what you would see is the next thing would be the tenant UDFS we went through. We went through the report and the notes, and we also did the data, portal data. The next thing you would want to do is make sure that when you're doing all of this, that you have everything correct. You want to make sure that all the data is correct. If you're having an impasse with a customer for whatever reason, a client, tenant, you want to make sure that they did pay on time and that the receipts, if you have them up here, if you want to, you can actually create a receipt image and put it in here. Just tap, go out to your desktop or your iPad and take an image of it, and then insert a copy of the actual paid check or whatever and put it right in this screen. Or you can have a, say for example, a credit card. If you take credit cards, you could have the tape actually entered in here as a pictorial in here. That way you have proof that you did or did not receive the payment. And that's more for the tenant and you both, not just one of you. Okay, and you can see I added my picture in here so you can see my handsome face. Okay, so you click off of it. If you have questions or you need more assistance on this screen, please contact me at the support site, and you can use that in the Do Magic thing here where you can either click here or you can go to the first screen or go to www.ontargetsolutions.biz. Thank you.